Hello, everybody. Again, welcome to Cosmic Owl Astrology with Louise Eddington. I am the Cosmic Owl, and I'm here today with the week ahead forecast beginning September the 22nd through to September the 29th. We're right in the middle of the eclipses. I'm recording this on September the 18th, still under the beams of the partial lunar eclipse that was conjunct Neptune. So it was actually massive. And I kind of felt like in this altered reality for a bit. It was very strange because, but anyway, you get the idea. So let's go ahead with the week beginning September the 22nd. Before I dive in, please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, subscribe to my channel, share it if you like, watch the video all the way through, please. Stay to the end. I've got two cards that I am, sorry, three cards that I am going to share. And I'm just passing them over. There we go, to my desktop, the photograph of them, so I can share it on screen. And you do want to stay to the end because they are pretty amazing cards. And, I am loving these eclipse seasons. I've said it before, eclipses, probably really due to old superstitions when people didn't really understand what was happening, have brought a lot of fear. And eclipses are like wild cards. They are big resets, but I really have a good feeling about this eclipse season. But we don't have an eclipse from the 22nd to the 29th. I'll talk about the second eclipse on the next week ahead video, but I've also done a solo podcast just for the solar eclipse that's on October the 2nd. So check that out as well. I'll link to that from this video. But it's still a much better week. It might seem like the world's crazy still, but I think there's been a lot of revelations, a lot of things revealed under this eclipse. We're starting to see things improving. In fact, I'm just seeing that the feds in the USA are lowering their interest rate by a whole half a percentage point. That's really pretty aggressive, pretty big. And the economy is going to speed up a little bit from that. People are going to start borrowing to buy houses again, and so on and so forth, because inflation's down, jobs are up, all kinds of things like that, and it was starting to slow down again. So whilst it was needed to raise the interest rates, they're on the way down. That bodes well for the election from my perspective as well here in the US. But anyway, let's go on for the week ahead. I just saw that popped up on my phone literally as I was saying that. So anyway, let's share the chart and dive into the week ahead. So here we are, starting on the 22nd. Well, we have a really big day to start the week because it is September the 22nd at 2:11 a.m. The sun has reached the anaretic degree of Virgo, spending the last day in the sign of Virgo and trines Pluto. And so that's a big, like at the liminal threshold degrees, saying big changes are coming, big transformations coming. The sun is on its way towards Pluto now as the faster moving thing. That just has this surge of change, which is further emphasized because it's not long after that, and I am going to move this along to that, at 8:43 a.m., the sun enters the sign of Libra. And Hecate has just entered. I don't normally talk about the asteroids, but these two are traveling together right now. And so Virgo, the big Virgo season is ending. We're in the eclipses that are in Libra and Aries, and the sun enters Libra, ready to move towards that new moon eclipse in Libra that's on October the 2nd. But that's another change, and that is the equinox. That is the equal night and equal day. And I will tell you that this is the chart for Washington, D.C. for the equinox. And I think this kind of bodes well because the USA's Mercury is up here. It's a Cancer country. I think the USA is reinventing itself and redefining itself as well. But interestingly, we've got all of this. We've got a Gemini moon as well on the equinox, and that's in the 8th house, and that's in the 12th house. There's a lot hidden there. There's a lot still to come out, I think, from this. But, I'm not going to go way into that anymore. But anyway, the sun enters Libra. Fantastic. But then Venus, the guide for Libra, squares Pluto. And that also is kind of a prequel to a big conjunction between Venus, Ceres, and Pluto that's happening on December the 7th. This is the closing quarter square, the crisis in consciousness of transforming who we want to be, what we desire to be, what we're transforming in the structures of our lives in a big way. And then right after that, Venus, so the sun enters Libra, as you can see again at 8:43 a.m. And then at 10:36 p.m., Venus leaves Libra and enters Scorpio and conjuncts Haumea. And after the square to Pluto, and I wrote the whole article on aspect of the decade, this 13 times Pluto and Haumea. They've both got this regenerative kind of energy square each other between 2022 and 2028. But Venus enters Scorpio. She's said to be in detriment there. I don't believe she is because I have Venus in Scorpio. I like Venus in Scorpio. But desires get very magnetic and very soul deep, and there's deep feelings with Venus in Scorpio. So the sun enters Libra, which is all about balance and harmony, but then the guide for Libra season and for the equinox goes into Scorpio, and we dig deep into our resources with Venus in Scorpio there. So then on the 23rd, I'm actually just going to go forward a couple of hours. So we're on to the 23rd. You can see that the sun's here, Venus is here. We have no exact aspects, major aspects, apart from this conjunction with Haumea on the 22nd. Oh, sorry, on the 23rd. But you can see that the moon is still in Gemini all day. So, it's quite sociable. All this air, all this Libra, the moon in Gemini, Jupiter's in Gemini, starting to slow down, but not at a standstill yet, station retrograde. It's a sociable weekend next weekend as well, and quite passionate with Venus in Scorpio, I do have to say. So let's move on to the 24th now. And on the 24th, we've got Mercury over here. Mercury's still in their own sign of Virgo, moving at speed now, left the shadow of the retrograde, moving very fast, actually. But, Mercury loves Virgo. This is about getting down to discernment and healthy criticism, critical analysis, being very sure and making sure you've made your pros and cons list of things. But on the 24th, Mercury trines Uranus, and that's lower mind and higher mind. That is like kapow, big ideas, innovative, changing perspectives. This is kind of like going, all right, I'm ready to kind of work on making these changes. So I'm going to make these pros and cons lists about which way to go or think about it, analyze everything and move forward. But there's going to be some innovative, radical change on that as well. But then on the 25th, but really at the same time, so we've got Mercury trine to Neptune On to the 25th, Mercury trine Uranus, then Mercury trines Neptune, but also then Mercury is trining Pluto. So at this point, we now have this Earth grand trine with Mercury there. The Sun was there before, pointing at Neptune, activating this mini grand trine that is just going to be ruling the rest of this year, right through next year, out of the earth and water signs, into air and fire, as Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus all change signs over the next few months. This is huge because these are the three of the slower moving big change agents. Pluto and Neptune have been in this ongoing sextile aspect by orb, and Uranus is joining the game, even though he's going to leave it a little bit because he's retrograde, but then he'll go direct and join the game big time again. But Mercury is at the point of this kite, pointed out by Neptune, saying, bring that, what's being revealed as the clouds part with Neptune's journey ending in the sign of Pisces, bringing it down to Earth, and really kind of, as I've already said, rationalizing the big changes, really pulling the pieces together and going, okay, how can I pull it all together and how can I do something really meaningful about this? Okay. All right, so that's the Mercury opposing Neptune. And then early on the 26th, Mercury trines Pluto at those anaretic degrees. The liminal threshold changes coming. It's uncomfortable. This is big change, but this is earth moving change as well. So, this is huge. So this is beyond the personal, really. We feel the big transformative changes coming all together. Okay. But then Mercury, after that, leaves the sign of Virgo and enters Libra on the 26th at 4:08 a.m. and joins Hecate, the Sun, the South Node, Black Moon, Lilith, and Juno, which I don't talk about all those aspects. I do those on my daily paid Substack writings, but it's a strong Libra season as we're going into the eclipse. So you might want to go and watch that eclipse video. But Mercury is there. Mercury's in Libra, and that's attention and mind turning to justice, balance, harmony, all that kind of thing, and conversations. That's very diplomatic is a great word for Mercury in the sign of Libra. Great for negotiations, great for diplomacy, so on and so forth. And then so that's the 26th. On to the 27th. Sorry about that. We actually have no major aspects. We've got no major aspects from when Mercury moves into Libra through the 27th. We can see the moon's in Cancer though, and then moves into Leo. And starts to wane towards and move towards the sun. But the next major aspect is on the 29th. So I'm going to go to that, but that is really the end of the report, in many ways. So, okay, bear with me. Oh, hope if I did the right node. So on September the 29th, which is actually next Sunday, but it's very early in the morning, so we will have a look at it. Then the Sun joins the South Node, but you can see that Mercury is right there as well. We're actually going to have a cazimi as well of Mercury and the Sun that's on the 30th, but that's next week's report. So you can see, really, we've got quite a quiet week in many ways, not a huge amount of aspects. But so I think because we've got the equinox, so the biggest aspect is that kite, Mercury making that Earth grand trine with Uranus and Pluto and opposing Neptune. That is pretty massive. But because we've got the equinox, I think I will actually go and look at the equinox chart and do a little bit more with that. Okay. So this is the equinox chart. I'm going to ignore houses. Actually, I'm going to pretend this, we're not just in the USA, right? Are we, any of us? So, um, hmm, all right, there we go. So zero Aries, I did a zero Aries chart. So the houses do not matter. We're just looking at the aspects and everything. And I think we can see a very strong pattern here. All right, so I'm going to draw some lines for the equinox. The equinox really kind of sets the scene a little bit for, the coming 3 months, because it's up to the Capricorn solstice then on the 21st. This is equal night, equal day. So as I mentioned before, when we looked at this briefly, at the equinox, we've got the moon at 1 degree Gemini, but this is conjunct Sedna. And that Sedna has 11,000, over an 11,000 year orbit. Sedna was last there when it was at the end of the Great Ice Ages and the start of the Neolithic Age. Now, I'm also going to add in fixed star Regulus to this because Regulus moved from our perspective, from the sign of Leo into the sign of Virgo back at the end of 2011. Now, Sedna has been squaring Regulus. So Sedna Regulus has not been in Virgo almost 25,000 years, because it spends 2,160 years in a sign. So it's had to go round the zodiac 12 times 2,160. Does anybody know if we've got much history back then? I don't think we have. So it's almost 26,000 years since it was last here. So there's that. Then about half that time-ish is Sedna's journey, 11,406 years, I think, is that orbit, um, has moved into Gemini. So these are huge, huge paradigm shifting things to go with the fact that Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus will be moving signs over the next few months. So all this to say that the moon is right there with Sedna and squaring Regulus for the equinox. So this kind of activates emotionally these huge shifts that we're going through. Okay. Then, of course, we've still got this kite that I mentioned, with Mercury coming up now and the sun making the out of sign one, the out of sign trine to Pluto and Uranus and opposing Neptune. But Mercury's coming up to join it, as we saw. We've also still got Pholus squaring their nodes and Mars opposing Ceres. We've still got the remnants of this cardinal grand cross square to the nodes in eclipse season, and eclipses are new and full moons near the nodes. We've also just had this Pisces eclipse, the first Pisces eclipse since Regulus moved into the opposite sign of Virgo. So, we're in a massive shifting, changing time again. And so looking at this chart, a lot of it's quite similar to the um, to the eclipse chart. But I will say that the sun is also at 0 degrees. Look at all of this. So this is at 1 degree, one new beginnings. Regulus is at 0 degree. The sun's clearly at 0 degree because it's sun's ingress into Libra, but Hecate is still at 0 Libra as well. Got all these kind of new beginnings. The divine feminine is reaching up and saying, it's time to really have these new beginnings, these infinite possibilities this feeling. Oh, and Haumea, of course, is at 0 degrees as well. So in fact, look at this. Hecate and Haumea are to the minute at the same degree. The triple moon, mind, body, spirit, goddess, or the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world in shamanic terms. Haumea is a creatrix as well. You know, these goddesses are showing us the way. They're holding their lamp up. Here's my Hecate there. She has her lamp and a raven. They're showing the way. They're saying, we're at this new beginning. This is the start of a new journey. We are beginning something new. Couple of things, other things I notice for this wonderful ingress and the equinox is that Vesta, the state or the inner flame of sacred devotion and commitment, but also the sacred flame of the hearth, is at 13 Virgo. 13 is the number of the goddess. Chariklo is helping us weave a new story. She's holding space for the future, is at 13 Aquarius. And these two are in an aspect of adjustment, a quincunx. And also, though, really, Vesta is opposing Saturn. Saturn's retrograde, revealing all the corruption and the trauma and all the things we've been under the patriarchy for hundreds and hundreds of years, is saying, you know, release, make adjustments, change, moving into this Virgo energy of the priestess, the divine feminine, being more useful, more humble, more down to earth, more kind of chop wood, carry water, more discerning. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful ingress, to be quite honest. It's quite awesome. So I'm just checking if there's anything else I really wanted to show you, and then no, I'm going to show you the cards. Okay. And I'm going to actually, because I've got the big guns out, because I love this. Oh, where's my image? Oh, there it is. There it is. Because I got my favorite cards out because it's eclipse season. I had been using the Light Seers Tarot for a while, but now I'm back to Toth or Soth Tarot, whichever you prefer to say it. These are the cards I pulled. Now look at these cards. Just looking at them, does this not kind of make you feel kind of very like this is amazing? Now look at the first one, the Aeon. Now the Aeon, if you're not aware of what the word means, is an age. An Aeon is an age. So I just mentioned that we're moving into this new paradigm, this new age in so many ways. And here we have the Aeon. But also the Aeon is the principle of good judgment and discernment. And what did I say? You know, what did I say about using discernment and you know, critical thinking now? But let me read you the quote from my favorite book on these cards is Angeles Arian's The Tarot Handbook. She says, learn to look with an equal eye upon all beings, seeing the one self in all. And that's from Srimad Bhagavatam, the perennial philosophy. Now, in this book, I love her interpretation of these cards. So even though I've written my own book on these things, you know, when I come to get to the Crowley deck, to the Toth deck, I really kind of go to her all the time. But let's have a look at this. This is the Pluto card. So Pluto, we know, is back at that last degree of Capricorn. But this is rebirth, review, transition, resurrection, and rite of passage. So this is saying we use good judgment this time as we move from one long indefinite period of time into another. The Aeon reminds us that all perceptions come from our ability to look at the whole, and that it is our inherent desire to consider longevity, history, and broad perspectives in all situations. That's where we come in, the first card. Then we get the Mercury in Cancer. Of course, Mercury is the mind. Mercury is not in Cancer, but look at this abundance, the cups flowing over, the berry cups just bursting with goodness, and all that water overflowing. This is another beautiful card. The cups cards are emotions, they are the water element, of course. And the Three of Cups is just one of the nicest ones. This is the abundant communicating heart. It's Mercury in Cancer, as I said. Mercury is the symbol of communication, and Cancer is associated with nurturement. So Mercury in Cancer is the ability to communicate the abundance of feelings that you have, especially the nurturing, positive, lighted feelings. And that's represented by the golden lotus blossoms. Remember, Camilla's name means lotus flower, whose pollen has totally changed into light and fills the pomegranate cups. They are pomegranate cups. That's a symbol of fertility and rebirth too. And it's said that he actually ate the pomegranate, not the apple, but you know, not true anyway, it's a myth. So, but this is friendship, family bonds, celebration, and fun. Amazing. And then the last card we get, look at that. Ace of Swords, Ace, number one, new beginnings. Look at it piercing the crown at the top there. These cards could not be nicer for the middle, especially for the middle of eclipse season, right? So this is the science. Oh, no, that's the, sorry. Let me go to the one. I have to read her book. This is mental clarity. This is inventiveness and originality. It's the mind that has no doubt. It's the mind that has moved out of doubt and confusion. There's the clouds. That's in Pisces into Virgo, discernment, okay? So it's moved out of doubt and confusion at the bottom of the card, moving into creative thinking, inspired and in the innovative mind, expanded awareness and consciousness. The creative mind is revealed by the sword. The Ace of Swords represents the balanced and receptive mind, which is portrayed by the crescent moons on the handle of the sword. You can see those two crescent moons. There's the snake as well of transformation. I'm not actually sure what these words say, but this is diamond consciousness according to this book. Okay. Mythically, the Ace of Swords is also associated with King Arthur in the Round Table. Now, that's come up twice this morning already, the Round Table. And I long ago had a dream that we end up with kind of more a circular kind of council at the top of governments. But anyway, so this card also is about the search for the Grail, and the application of wisdom achieved from retrieving the sword lodged in the stone is reflected in the Ace of Swords. Wow. Now I have to look at my book, The Complete Guide to Tarot and Astrology. So this is air signs, of course. This is, you know, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And this one is number one, so it's new beginnings. And this means new beginnings, new ideas, breakthrough, clear communication, and truth. Could this be nicer for a reset week of in between eclipses and new beginnings on the equinox? And for this week is kind of going to say heart's going to be full, you're going to be speaking clearly from the heart, from your creative ability, but with discernment and clarity. Fantastic. I also think, see that sword piercing the patriarchy, to be quite honest. But anyway, that's the week ahead. I've done it well ahead of time for once, so I will see you next time. Bye.